In this week's video, I'm going to be demonstrating 4 different techniques for applying edge banding to your sheet good projects. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Jason with Bent's Woodworking, and if you're new to my channel, consider subscribing. This week I want to talk about multiple different techniques to accomplish the same task. The task that we're going to be doing today is applying edge banding. Far too often I get messages over on Instagram or comments here on YouTube of people maybe being intimidated or thinking that they can't do something that I'm doing because they don't have the tools that I am using. So I'm going to be the first to tell you that you don't need all the things that I have to do good work. The goal of this video is to show you that you can do the same task with various tools, so you can make the determination in what is best for you in your shop. So now that I've said that and made it perfectly clear what the goal of this video is, let's go ahead and start edge banding different pieces of sheet goods. So what I have here on my assembly table in front of me is 4 different setups. The first setup I'm going to talk about is really just cutting your own hardwood edge banding using something like a bandsaw, a table saw, or whatever you can use to cut thin strips. And some different ways that you can go about attaching it to that piece of plywood or whatever sheet good you're using. The second technique we're going to talk about is the traditional iron-on edge banding that comes with pre-glued edge banding that you can buy at just about any home store or many places online. The third technique that I'm going to show you is using some of this peel and stick, which requires no glue and no iron. And then finally, the last technique that I'm going to show you is using an edge banding machine like this Conturo and trimming it using a router. The way that I just explained those is from least expensive options to most expensive options, and that is the way that we will go through this video. So let's go ahead and get into the very first demonstration, which is the homemade hardwood edge banding. Okay, so for the first technique is just cutting your own hardwood edge banding. And no, this doesn't match. This is all just scrap that I have in my shop. I was able to match some of them, but for the purposes of this video, it's completely just a demonstration. So what I have here is some 18 millimeter birch ply, and then I just have an 1/8 inch thick strip of walnut that I cut for this demonstration. And you can use any type of hardwood. You can match the hardwood to whatever the panel project is. If you're painting it, you know, I might suggest using a wood that will paint very well and is cost effective. But this is really as simple as it gets, okay? And so this is 18 millimeters thick. The piece that I have, I actually milled it down to 18 millimeters. And one of the benefits to this is you can actually apply this edge banding without ever having to worry about trimming anything. It would maybe at worst be some very, very light sanding, but since this is milled to the same thickness as the stock itself, if I'm able to put this on correctly, it's not going to require any changes at all. And to apply it, all I'm going to do is give myself a little bit of glue to run it along the edge. Go ahead and spread it out using my very expensive glue spreader, being my finger. And I'm going to go ahead and apply my edge banding. Now, this is where I'm going to use a pin nailer. Okay? Well, you might be saying, well, I don't have a pin nailer. What am I supposed to do? We'll talk about that. So I'm going to pin it on one end. It makes such a small hole, it's not even really noticeable. You can go back and fill it later if you'd like. I'm going to go down here to the other edge, make sure everything is nice and flush. Put that nail in, go to the center, put that nail in, and just like that, my edge banding is on. Now, there are other techniques that you can do to apply this. You can use a clamp, which clearly you would just attach the clamp to one side and put the clamp here, and you could use multiple clamps down. You could use spring clamps or bandy clamps as they're called. Rockler's sells some great ones, and that's a very common technique to applying this. You could also do something as simple as using blue painter's tape to apply the pressure that you need by placing it on the ply, pulling nice and tight, and then pulling it down on the other side, and that is going to apply more than enough pressure until your glue sets. And then you could do that down the entire length, giving yourself a little bit of spacing in between. But that's the first technique. And to cut these off, you can take it back to whatever power tool you want to use. You could even take a flush trim saw like this, and you can go ahead and cut it flush, just like that. Let's go ahead and do it on this side. It's an 1/8 of an inch thick. It's not hard to cut through. And again, do you have to have a flush trim saw? Absolutely not, right? But there's multiple ways that you can do that. But that is about as easy as it gets with very, very minimal tools in the shop. You could do this whole thing with scrap wood and some painter's tape and some glue. So now let's go ahead and go into the more traditional iron-on technique. Okay, so for technique number 2 being iron-on edge banding, I've got the same exact style material. This is 18 millimeter birch ply, and this edge banding right here is actually 3/4 inch birch edge banding, and on the back of it you will see that it already has glue applied to it, and the whole reasoning behind this is you heat this up, it melts the glue, and then the glue adheres to the piece of wood itself. Some other things that I'll be using here is you could use something as simple as a small sanding sponge, which I'll get to here in a moment. You don't have to have any crazy edge trimmers. You can use something as simple as a razor blade. And then I'll kind of demonstrate this, but this goes more with the system, which I'll be showing you in the next step. So obviously no pin nails, no brad nails, no glue or anything needed for this. The only thing you need for this is the edge banding and the iron. And so you just set your iron temperature. I typically, just go as hot as the iron gets in most cases. Make sure that it doesn't shift while I'm ironing. And once you heat it up initially, the glue will really start to melt right away. I have found I've done iron-on edge banding quite heavily. Actually, it's been kind of my primary for quite some time until I recently learned about some other methods. And it seems to work pretty good. It's just a little bit more time consuming than some other methods. And so I'll just go applying nice even pressure across the whole board. And for those of you that want a more detailed example of the process that I take when using an iron, I do actually have a YouTube video dedicated just to that. And I'll go ahead and leave a link to that up in the corner now. Okay, so now that I've gone ahead and ironed that on, I'm gonna let that cool off for just a moment. And while that's cooling off, I'll kind of go ahead and briefly discuss what I'm going to use these things for. So I mentioned before you can use something as inexpensive and cheap and readily available as a razor blade. There are some downsides to using the razor blade, and obviously you want to make sure that it's a relatively new and fresh razor blade because it just has a tendency to cut a little bit better. But what can happen is at times you can dig into the plywood itself, which could cause problems later on. But if you're careful, you can typically get a pretty good finish. And then that is what the sanding pad is with just, this is like 320 grit sandpaper. And this just really allows you, any of those rough areas that you had, you can go and touch those up. What this is really the same thing. It just gives you the ability to do it on both sides at the same time. And I will demonstrate that on this because the next one I'm going to be doing is actually PVC, and this isn't as good for PVC edge banding. So I think this has had plenty of time to go ahead and cool off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my razor down here at this end, and I'm just going to kind of follow the board. And I personally like to kind of go at an angle just to really help me not cut in to the actual plywood itself. But like right there, that was an instance where, I started to kind of go into the wood. But as long as you can get a nice little rhythm here, so you can see some of that glue that's coming out. So I can cut it on the sides and do the same thing on the opposite side. Come back this way. There are definitely other tools, which you're going to see in the next step, which make this process a lot easier. But again, this is another inexpensive way for you to get this done. So now what do we do with the wood on the ends? Well, you can break it off. You can leave it long if you really want to, and then cut all your pieces after that. Or you can take something like these flush edge trimmers, like this, and these are designed to cut perfectly flush with the end of your board. Just like that. And so now that I've cut the ends, well, I want to make sure, see how messy and just gross this really is? Well, that's where the sanding pad comes in. And I can smooth out that edge, clean up any of this glue, and get a really, really nice finish. Now, demonstrating doing both sides at the same time, this is a tool from FastCap, which I'm going to explain more in the next step. And you can just go back and forth. And you're getting both sides at the same time. And that will give you a nice, slightly rounded edge, right? And there's some touch-up that I need to do, so I can take my sanding pad, get everything nice and flush. Okay, so that's good. Got a little bit there. I'm going to go down. Okay, so that's good. And now we have a nice, clean, edge-banded piece of plywood. Go ahead and try to bring it in close so you guys can really see it. But you can get really, really, really good results using the iron-on edge banding. So let's go to the third technique. So the next one I'm going to show you, this is black melamine and this is black laminate edge banding. This edge banding is different from the previous two. Obviously, it doesn't require any external glue and it does not have any glue like you would find on iron-on edge banding. This is actually a peel and stick. And this product is from a company called FastCap. Matter of fact, all of these products here are from a company called FastCap. And I have this entire set here to show you what this set does. And that is all specifically designed for edge banding. And so we talked about these flush cut pliers in the first part. You can use this to cut your edge banding and then also trim up the ends. This here is what's called a decurler. And this is used, this typically is more common with hardwood edge banding. If it was really, really bowed up like this, something you can do is take this, run it through the decurler, and it will help flatten it out, which makes it much easier for you to use on the board. This right here, since this is peel and stick, this is a press roller, so it kind of gives you the same action as the iron does by applying pressure, but that's what you want to do to get the adhesive to grip the wood. The next thing, this is the tool I was talking about before that actually allows you to do a very quick, clean cut, and this will actually cut the edge banding on both sides. And then this, which I will not use in this demonstration, but is why I use it on the last demonstration, this is yet another tool to help you sand both sides, like so. The reason I wouldn't use it on PVC is because it can be quite a bit more rough on that material than it is wood. So now I will go ahead and take you through this process. And this is a process that I just recently started doing on all of my shop furniture. And I used a lot of black melamine, so I was able to use a lot of this black laminate edge banding. And you can also actually even get this in thicker custom sizes if you wanted to, which is available through a lot of edge banding companies. But because I was using laminated melamine for a lot of the tops, I needed thicker material, so I was able to do that. To apply this, all you do is you peel off the tape. Now, preferably, I don't like to peel it all off, and it's extremely sticky, so you want to make sure you're a little bit careful. Once I get it so I have about equal overhang on both sides, I just start to run down the board and apply pressure as I go down. Okay, so it's stuck now, right? But that's it. That's all you have to do to put it on there. Now, I'm going to take this roller and I'm going to press back and forth. Making sure that that adhesive really sticks to the wood. Once I'm comfortable with that, now I can take my trimmers, cut one end, cut the other end, nice and flush. Okay. And now I showed you before how to do it using just a razor blade. Okay. Well, this device right here, place it on the end, get the cut going. I start pulling it back, and you guys are going to see the edge banding coming out of both sides as I pull this back. So this is cutting flush on both sides at the same time. And that is it. That is that technique. So far, I've been really impressed with the peel and stick. I haven't noticed any major issues. Time will tell, but so far I really like it. I think it's a really good solution, especially if you have a lot of edge banding to do. The fourth and final technique that I'm going to go over is using an edge banding machine. And there are a lot of different options out there. The one that I'll be demonstrating is the Festool Conturo. And then I'll be following that up to clean up the edge banding with a router. The whole idea with using a machine to do it is, you know, if you're doing a lot of edge banding, something like this would come in very handy. Or the way that all this works is that you have glue in the machine then feeds through your edge banding while applying glue to the edge banding. So really the amount that you have to do is very minimal other than cutting the strip itself. And so now I'm going to walk you through how you would go about applying edge banding with something like this. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my edge banding. Edge banding is in my machine, and now I'm going to go ahead and apply it. As I said before, the whole purpose of this is that the machine is what's doing the work for you. Comes out, and then I just run the machine down the board, coming straight off at the end, and it's done. And to trim the ends on these boards, this is just another version of the edge trimmer. I trim that edge flush, bring it over to the other side, trim that edge flush, and now I can go ahead and trim this flush using my router. When the router's set up properly, one pass on the router and it's done. Like I would feel totally comfortable not doing anything to this, but if I had a little bit of glue just because the router wasn't adjusted just right, you could take a scraper like this and smooth everything out, and now it's a nice, clean finish. To close this video out, I'm going to come in nice and close so I can show you guys the hardwood edge banding that you can make yourself and show you. And this is no touch-ups or anything. This is just directly after me doing the video. So there's the first one. Now we're going to go down to the iron-on edge banding. You can see the results there. Very, very clean. Now we're going to go ahead and go to the peel and stick edge banding with the laminate. Nice clean edge there. And now we'll go ahead and show you the one with the edge banding machine. Nice clean edge there. So that is 4 different ways that you can apply edge banding. I'm not here to tell you which one is the absolute best and which one is a must, because it is completely personal preference. And in a lot of cases, it's going to be based on your budget or what tools you already have in your shop. More importantly, how much you're actually doing this task. I tried to think long and hard on how I could demonstrate multiple different techniques, and I feel like I've given you guys plenty of information to make your own decisions and truly decide what might be best for you in your shop. I will leave affiliate links to everything that I described and talked about in this video down in the description, as I always do. And if you guys want to go and purchase some of those items, awesome. If you just want to go find out more information about them, awesome. But it will be there for you should you choose to use it. As always, everybody, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. Just understand that moving forward, you're going to see a lot more videos like this. And my biggest reasoning for it is because I want you to understand there are multiple ways to do the same thing. Hopefully I can shed some light on some techniques or some different tools that make things more efficient and faster that maybe you didn't know about. Before I let everybody go, I just want to say a special thank you to all of my supporters over on Patreon. Just know that I truly appreciate the support, and it really does make a huge difference in allowing me to spend more time creating this content for all of you. For those of you that might be interested in becoming supporters over on Patreon, I will leave a link down in the video description below. That's going to do it for me in this video, everybody. Thank you for watching. Until next time, get out in the shop, try something new, and I will see you in the next video.